Hello and welcome to today's webinar, which is an overview of the 2015 NextBillion case writing competition. I'm happy to be here with you all today. My name is Sandra Draheim. I'm the marketing manager for the William Davidson Institute at the University of Michigan. William Davidson Institute is also referenced sometimes as WDI, and Global Lens Case Publishing is part of the William Davidson Institute. A couple of brief notes before we get started this morning. Throughout today's presentation, if you have questions, please type them into your question panel on the dashboard you see on your screen, and then I will try to answer everyone's question at the end of the presentation today so that all attendees can hear the answers. If I can't get to all the questions today, I will answer them by email after the presentation. So either way, I will answer any questions that I can. Our agenda today looks pretty packed, but we're going to go through this rather quickly. I'll start with the whole objective of the case writing competition as well as some groups that support the competition every year. We'll talk about who the judges are for this year's competition, of course the prizes, key dates, which are always very important. I'll speak a little bit to the entry and submission requirements, judging criteria, common challenges that we've noticed year to year so that you can avoid those. We'll highlight some things in previous competitions, and then I'm happy to have Scott Anderson, the managing editor of our NextBillion network, speak for a little bit, and then we'll go to a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So the NextBillion case writing competition is in its 5th year. The first was in 2010. And it's important for everyone to understand the objective of having this competition, which is to generate, publish, and disseminate the latest and most compelling cases about positive social impact, especially in the developing world. By doing so, our business leaders of tomorrow will be better prepared to bring about improved economic well-being for the billions of people at the base of the pyramid. So that's our competition objective. And our support groups for the competition are very important. Our sponsor, who is Citi Foundation, they're actually a partner of NextBillion.net, and they're focused on supporting the economic empowerment and financial inclusion of low to moderate income people in the different communities where Citi operates. The administrator of the competition is, again, Global Lens Case Publishing, and they're the publishing division of WDI. They were launched in 2007, and they professionally publish, market, and distribute high-quality business case studies for business schools globally. The media partner for this competition, again, is NextBillion.net, and this network is the leading online source for strategies that create opportunities and improve the quality of life for the world's low-income producers and consumers. The judges for the case competition this year are first Paul Clyde, and Paul is president of the William Davidson Institute. Paul's recent work in emerging markets has focused on healthcare delivery to the poor, and over the past probably 15 years he has advised and managed over 50 healthcare projects in 12 different emerging markets. Prior to joining the Institute and the University of Michigan, he was an economist at the Antitrust Division at the U.S. Department of Justice and a consultant. Our second judge, we're happy to welcome her back as a judge this year. Hui Wen Chan is the Impact Analytics and Planning Officer at the Citi Foundation. She's responsible for measuring and tracking portfolio performance and impact to support the Foundation's grants planning process. She has prior work experience in both the private and nonprofit sectors. Our third judge is Tara Saber-Collier. She's an impact investing specialist at Growfin Capital, which is a Pan-African impact investing fund. She's also the co-founder of EOSS Consulting, which is an economic development consulting firm based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And then our fourth judge this year is Andrea Massini, who is an associate professor of ops management and information technology at HEC Paris. Andrea was the first place winner of last year's NextBillion case competition, and we're happy to welcome him this year as a judge. The prizes for the competition this year are as follows. First prize is $3,500 US. Second is $2,500 US. And third is $1,000 US. And then we also award 2 honorable mentions. All of the winners are published by Global Lens, and when we say published, we mean the following things. We handle all the copy editing on the winning cases. We prepare the graphics and formatting needs for all of the cases. We prep the e-commerce site to post them, which means we do the site programming and coding and prep the site analytics for each case. And one of the most important things we do is once all of that is complete, we market the winning cases to business schools around the world. The key dates for the 2015 competition are as follows. First, October 10th is the entry form deadline, and only the entry form is due on October 10th, not the entire case submission. On December 19th is when all submissions are due, and then we will announce the winners April 3rd, 2015. The reason that we ask for just an entry form to be submitted on October 10th is that it gives us a handle on how many entries we will be receiving, and that way we can manage time for the reviews and responses and judges and so on. It's just very helpful to know what we'll be needing to review. But most importantly, getting the information required on the entry form allows us to really assist submitters with suggestions. You know, if we perceive that any of the teaching objectives, decision point, protagonists need any adjustment, you know, by asking for this document 2 months before you need to submit your finished case, there's actually enough time to make adjustments if they're needed. The basic entry requirements are as follows. The topic definitely has to be about a social enterprise focused on the base of the pyramid or that part of the world. It should be about a social enterprise, maybe exploring how they, you know, market solutions to poverty. We might want to explore risks and rewards of organizations deploying market-based approaches to social and economic development. We would hope that cases would also highlight maybe a multinational business or an entrepreneur that has had to overcome odds to deliver value and help fight poverty. So this is the overview of the topic we're looking for, and it does have to be on this topic based on the entry requirements. From a quality and structure standpoint, our hope would be that all entries meet the basic quality and structure guidelines highlighted in a document that you can all have access to called How to Write a Business Case. Minimally, a submitted case must have a protagonist, a clear decision point or a dilemma, and sufficient contextual background with information cited with reputable primary or secondary sources. Every entry must have a teaching note, which covers the following categories. The teaching note should cover an overview of the case, should provide teaching objectives, should be based on pedagogy, In other words, how an instructor should organize his time to teach the case in class. It should include a case analysis, which is really a roadmap on how to lead the case discussion. It should include assignment questions and somewhat of a teaching plan, again, how to allocate time in the class as the case is taught. Another requirement is that it must be a previously unpublished case. Down the road, we don't want any trouble with copyright or distribution of a winning case, so we must ask that a case submitted must be previously unpublished. If you have an exceptional reason, you can talk to me offline or email me, but our preference is to have an unpublished case prior to entering the competition. And then finally, the proper legal forms have to be accounted for. If you use proprietary information in a case, you'll have to get an organizational release signed. If you don't use primary information and just use secondary, then as the author, you would need to sign a review release. And I can provide more details about that offline. The final submission, the final case submission, which is due December 19th this year, from a high level should be in Microsoft Word format, both the case and the teaching note. It should have figures, tables, and exhibits that are identified clearly with a letter or a number, that include a headline, that are embedded in a Word document, but also provided as an individual document. The final submission also needs to include a completed submission form. Again, the proper legal forms, and then you send those final submissions to me. That is my email address on the screen. There are several criteria that our judging process takes into account, and I'd like to cover those briefly here. First, the first judging criteria is topic and content. Again, the topic and content has to clearly be related to a challenge or dilemma of an organization focused on base of the pyramid or alleviating poverty. A second judging criteria category is the teaching and learning value. What we mean by that is, does it engage students into an active learning mode? Does it provide students with opportunities to analyze and solve relevant practical BOP-related issues? And does it contain elements that allow students to exercise complex thinking? And finally, does it include clear, measurable teaching objectives? Another judging criteria is the introduction or overview, which should address the problem to be examined and really pique the curiosity of the reader. Another criteria, the protagonist and the organization. Does it introduce the protagonist with appropriate detail about their role in the organization, and does it provide enough details about the organization or company? And overall, does the case provide enough context for the protagonist and the organization? Next is the dilemma. This has to be clearly identified and also has to clearly identify the decision point fairly early in the case. The dilemma also has to identify the time frame of the decision point. And then finally, the judging criteria last is format, writing, and the teaching notes. So is the case the appropriate length based on the difficulty of the situational context described? Is it accompanied by a teaching note? And overall, is the case submission free from, basic structural, grammatical, or spelling errors? I'd like to identify some common challenges that some submitters have come across in previous competitions. I hope that by talking about a few of these, I can help this year's entrants avoid some of these. First, teaching objectives. As I've said previously, these need to be included in the teaching note. And it's just important to remember, teaching objectives should be definitive, measurable learning outcomes. So in other words, focus on what you want the students to do and how they will prove to you that they did it after they have analyzed the case. The objectives should typically be about two to five per case. They can be as few as 2, but certainly not more than 5. There should be no ambiguity about what's expected of the student, and it always helps to use action verbs when you write teaching objectives. And if you use the following phrase, it often helps develop teaching objectives. So each objective should begin with a phrase like this: after discussing this case, students will be able to, and then you complete that for each of your objectives. Another challenge is sometimes the protagonist. Again, the protagonist has to have a clearly identified role and responsibility in the case. Note that protagonists generally will have some type of bias, and that's okay. That's how the real world works. And finally, the protagonist should link back to the teaching objectives. So the objectives should be realistic to the protagonist's level of responsibility and position in an organization. And then finally, the topic. This might sound easy, but it's important to remember that the topic must be about a social enterprise focused on alleviating poverty. One more challenge that's not on the screen right now, but I'd like to mention is the citations or endnotes to a case. Please note that Wikipedia is not accepted as a citation or a source for information. And if you use the internet or a URL location for a source, you must not only cite the URL but also include the title of the work, the date you accessed it, and authors if that's possible to get. We've had several very successful competitions, and I'd like to share with you a couple of the highlights of those competitions. We've had the average of total submissions over the past couple of years has averaged about 150 different people who have entered either individually or in teams, which is fine. And they've represented up to 50 different universities in 11 countries. So this competition has really become quite global in scope, and we're just delighted at that. And even more exciting is the fact that past winning cases have been adopted at multiple universities, and I've listed some of these on the screen here, but I can read them as well. NextBillion case winners have been adopted at HEC Paris, IPADE in Mexico, Yale University, Indian Institute of Management, California State, Long Beach, Wellingkar Institute of Management in India, Duke University, and the list just goes on and on. So that's very exciting to us as the supporters of the competition, but it also should be very exciting to those past winners and to all of you who may be future winners. Also interesting, this isn't on your screen, but the different types of courses that these winning cases have been adopted into include everything from ops management to MBA branding courses, marketing and sustainability courses. They've even been adopted for various case analysis competitions at different schools. They've been taught in courses about business strategies by firms in emerging markets, impact investing, and again, the list of courses goes on and on. So this is also just very exciting to us as competition supporters, because we're spreading the word about how to address the needs of the base of the pyramid across the world, and we're preparing our future leaders to address those within the cases that are submitted. So at this point, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Scott Anderson, who's the managing editor of the NextBillion Network. Scott?
Thank you, Sandy. It's great to be with you all here, and NextBillion is obviously very proud to be a media partner for this competition, now, of course, in its 5th year. And we're also grateful to our sponsors at the City Foundation, which has helped support the competition in the area of prize money, and as well as, of course, the work at Global Lens, which is doing really the hard work of managing the competition, helping the case writers and researchers perfect these articles and these stories. You know, the competition really reflects the mission of NextBillion, which is, you know, to share knowledge and experience and applied knowledge, really, around the best practices for businesses to work on some of the most challenging aspects of poverty and the symptoms of poverty. We know that there's a thirst for this knowledge. This is still a relatively new area for academia, because just about every day it seems that there's a new social enterprise program or impact investing program that's launching in not only in U.S. universities but around the world. And this competition and the cases that it produces are really critical, I believe, for expansion of these programs and knowledge, and ultimately the development of new business leaders around the world. I just returned from the Social Capital Conference, SOCAP conference in San Francisco last week, and just about every panel that was happening, and this is a very large conference, about 2,500 people from investors, from social enterprises and NGOs, as well as representatives of academia. It seems like everyone wants to know about a success story, an important case, or something that they can share, so these organizations aren't reinventing the wheel. And that's why I think that the case writing competition is so important. Not only does it instruct students and future leaders, but I believe that many of these cases are being purchased from the private sector as well. There's just that much interest in what's happening in terms of social enterprise and entrepreneurship. Sandy touched on some of these areas, but I would just reiterate that the competition is really concerned with solutions and decision points from managers and companies across multiple sectors. So past winners have included social enterprises that are directly involved in microlending, in developing and selling water filtration products to the base of the pyramid, maternal health. And I think what we saw last year were cases, the winning cases looked at ecosystem development. So if you look at the winning case last year on African Solar Rise, which is a German NGO that partners with rural entrepreneurs to sell renewable energy products to the base of the pyramid, that was very much focused on how do you start building a new industry. And I think the cases that I can identify those sorts of trends as well are very valuable. So again, we're just happy that that so many people have taken interest in it, and are excited to see what researchers, professors, students, and teams can bring to the competition for 2015. One other point, I guess, that I would add is that NextBillion does its best to promote the work that you do, and as part of that, when the competition finalists are announced, the 3 winners as well as the honorable mentions, NextBillion will be hosting a live Google Hangout with the winners to share their knowledge and to go a little deeper in terms of how they created the cases, how they explored or met with the entrepreneurs at the heart of these cases. So we really want to kind of provide a wraparound here with the how-tos and as well as to give the proper acknowledgement to the professors and students that are involved with this. So good luck, and please rely on NextBillion and, of course, Global Lens to help you in developing your cases. Back to you, Sandy.
Thank you very much, Scott. That was very, very helpful and interesting. So as we begin to wrap up today's webinar, I'd like to just remind everyone that contest forms, details, resources are all available at globallens.com/NB2015. The website is listed on your screen now. And I would also encourage everyone, if they have any questions, to contact me by email. My email address is right there. Also, as we wrap up, I'd like to share that, yes, the webinar today is being recorded, and I'll make the recorded webinar available to everyone who registered as well as attended today by sending you a link to it. We will probably post it on YouTube, but I'll send you a direct link, so it's very convenient. And I can also provide you with a copy of the slide deck, even though that's going to be visible on the webinar recording. But I would very much encourage everyone to visit the globallens.com/NB2015 website just to review all of the contest details and resources that are available to you there. We even provide links to all of the past winning cases so that that can be a resource for anyone entering this year to review. I was going to ask answer any questions that we had come through. I haven't had too many. I don't think that I haven't already answered, but I do thank you for attending today. I would encourage you to share the news about the competition. I would also encourage you to work with a university faculty member as you step through writing your case. That is, if you're a student. Obviously, if you're already a faculty member, you don't need to do that. But again, thank you to everyone for attending today. I've really appreciated your attention and look forward to receiving your submissions in December, but getting your entry forms by October 10th. So thank you, and that ends today's informational webinar on the 2015 NextBillion case competition. Thank you very much.